Hi, everybody. It's Tanya Barb here at the Colley Institute. I'm a therapist here where we are helping um, clients practice. No, goodness gracious, it feels like a Monday today. The, Here at the Colley Institute, we are a counseling and wellness practice where we are helping um, individuals, high achieving individuals, access their best life and joyfully release their inner badass. And so off to a little bit of a shaky start, but that's okay. We're going to get right into it. And so today we're going to be talking about strengths, how to notice and enjoy and enhance what we do right. Oftentimes we spend a lot of time um, thinking about our shortcomings, and it's kind of built into our our culture and our society. Like we oftentimes um, there's movies and stories and myths and books about people like really overcoming something, and there's power in that for sure. Someone overcoming their shortcomings to reach a goal, but I think that it can also kind of set us up to take the path of most resistance in our life when we are focusing on our shortcomings as opposed to developing our strengths. And so today I just wanted to kind of explore that a little bit with you all, and we'll have a little kind of interactive exercise here in a little bit where you can kind of start tuning in to figuring out what do I think my strengths are. um, I have this book here, the Strengths Finder, by Tom Rath. And this, was introduced to this book in my previous job, where it was a requirement to read the book and do the Strengths Finder quiz, and then it kind of shoots back at you what your 5 or 6 top strengths are. And my top strength was empathy, which is good news for someone who is a therapist. Um, but what I liked about knowing the strengths, at first I kind of didn't understand what's the value in knowing this information. But then it was super interesting to be part of a team of about 35 people, and everyone is coming in with a different kind of combination of the 34 strengths or talents that are in the book. Um, and how our manager was able to kind of use those strengths to help build community within the team, to help build connection within the team, and also to use the team's strengths, which ranged from I think probably all 34 of the strengths were represented in some way on the team, to use all of those strengths together to make the team stronger and come up with innovative solutions to problems and creative solutions to challenges. So it can be really helpful to know what your own strengths are, as well as recognize and honor the strengths that are in others. Um, but today we're going to focus on ourselves, and so really again, like I was talking about before, we are a little bit hardwired to notice and try to address our shortcomings or the things that we maybe aren't as good at. And so this is going to be some tips maybe to figure out what are my strengths and how can I strengthen those strengths. Um, so how do we know what our strengths are? So the first tip for today, excuse me, is to ask around. A lot of the times we may not know or recognize what our own strengths are because we're just so busy kind of trying to make it through the darn day. So asking around, asking trusted friends, asking your supervisor or your boss, like what do you think my strengths are? Um, and again, it may be hard for us to know what our strengths are because we are so focused on what our weaknesses are. By asking around and getting kind of that outside perspective, that can be helpful in helping us identify our strengths, and that we're not just focused on kind of our blind spots. And this can really help us uncover our hidden talents. So that would be the first, maybe a first place to start would be asking around. And I would recommend if, it just depends on what your relationship is with your boss or your supervisor. And so that may not be the place to start for everybody, but friends, even family members can help uncover those hidden talents. The second tip is to try to kind of think back, and I'm going to do a little guided visualization here in a minute. But what we're looking for is, when did you last feel like you were in a flow state? And if you're not familiar with that term, a flow state is that state of mind where you're really highly engaged in something, in an activity, in a task, where you feel super clear, you feel energized, you feel focused, you are finding enjoyment in doing the thing that you're doing, and you're giving it your full involvement, your full engagement. And time may feel like it kind of stops or speeds up or kind of does a weird thing, but that's just because you're so kind of in that zone. And we often hear artists talk about being in a zone, or athletes being in the zone, but anyone can find a flow state. And it's easier to find a flow state when we are using our natural talents and our natural strengths, and that we're really engaged in activities that focus on those. And so I'm going to guide us through a little kind of visualization process here. So I invite you to, if it feels okay, to close your eyes and take a couple big deep breaths, and feel, if you're sitting, kind of feel your sitting bones in your chair. Feel your feet on the floor. Let out a big long exhale. And just take a moment to settle in first. And then I want you to start thinking, when I was describing the flow state, that idea of being engaged in something where you feel a lot of clarity of thought, that you feel really engaged, you feel focused, you feel energized, even if maybe you do something for a long time, at the end and during, you feel energized. So kind of think of those ideas and see if you can find an instance where you felt that. What were you doing? And just kind of sit with that for a moment. See if you can see yourself doing that thing. And then start to notice where and what you feel in your body. Does it feel like your breath has slowed to a nice rhythm? Does it feel like your heart rate is kind of finding a regulated beat? Do you notice if there's an absence of something? It might be an absence of tightness that you maybe feel throughout a day, in your neck. And then when you think about this time, you feel the absence of that tightness. So just taking the next couple moments to feel into your body while you're visualizing that activity. And over the course of the next couple breath cycles, just come on back, welcome back. And if you have something to write on, or kind of just jot down some ideas about what you noticed, what were you doing what did you visualize? Was it a really detail oriented task? Maybe you were working on a spreadsheet or doing something really data, a lot of data analysis, something really detail oriented? Was it when you were engaged with another person and you were really like tuned into them, you were listening and they were like whatever that engagement looked like? Maybe it was really esoteric and you're like thinking about long in the future and kind of visual thinking, what could that be? And that could be when you felt that flow state. Maybe it was a competition, or maybe you were doing some art, whatever it was, just kind of jot that down. And over, I would encourage you to do this visualization a few more times and see if you start to notice any themes. Um, and then that can help you start to kind of bringing it back to our topic for tonight, our strengths. Um, that noticing those themes can help you start to identify some of those strengths. And maybe um, if you start to be like, oh, I did not really realize that I liked doing spreadsheets, but when I'm doing spreadsheets, I really feel in this flow state. That is important information. And maybe you are, maybe that's one of your hidden talents. So just something to kind of work with and think about. Um, and then finally, the third tip for today is kind of going along with what we just did. It's to train your brain to notice. And so it's building that awareness and that mindfulness. I feel like during a lot of my Facebook Lives, I'm talking about mindfulness and building awareness and all of this, it all does go together. Um, so for this specific topic tonight, this about strengths, so this will be the next time you do notice that you are in that flow state, or maybe you just finished something and you're like, whoa, I just worked for 2 straight hours and I feel great. What were you just doing? Like, take a moment to really notice, take a pause. What was I doing? And note that for yourself. Notice where you felt it in your body. Notice what it felt like to have that clarity of thought, that focus, what that feels like to be regulated. When we're in a flow state, our nervous system is regulated. And that is important kind of training for our nervous system. Our A lot of the times our society and our culture is there's a lot of go, go, go and push, push, push. And that can have our nervous system on high alert for a lot of the time. And so being in a state where we do feel regulated is so important for that nervous system to know that, oh, this is what regulation feels like. I do know what regulation feels like. I do know how to get there. So that is just good nervous system training that helps tone the excuse me again, goodness. Um, it helps tone the parasympathetic nervous system, part of the nervous system that helps us to relax and restore and recover. And the more that you notice and the more that you practice, the easier and more natural that it's going to feel. And also, it just kind of goes back to that nervous system training, that the more that we can train the nervous system, that we know what it's like to feel regulated, the more we can access that regulated state. So, just kind of as a summary, ask around. What do you think my strengths are? What do you think my strengths are? What do you see that I'm good at? Then doing that self-guided um, visualization. When did I last feel that good flow state feeling? And then um, noticing when you do feel it in that moment or right after that moment, being like, oh, there it was. What was I doing? And starting to take note of those experiences and finding the common themes of what are my strengths, what are my hidden talents. So our call to action this week is regarding intuition and noticing these strengths. And we have here at the Kali Institute a free course on intuition. And listening to our intuition can help us to access and notice and find our unique strengths. And so I encourage you to use the link that is in the comments to go through that course. That's great. And also there is also a link to the Strengths Finder the Strengths Finder information and book and quizzes and stuff. So um, I appreciate everybody tuning in tonight. And if you are tuning in later after this is posted, please feel free to leave any comments or questions, and we'll definitely get back to you. And I will see you in a couple weeks. Take care. Bye bye.